So talk about like how you get into this book a little bit. Were you going into like your own experiences as like a SSP? Like, is that where you're where the how the book kind of
Yeah.
goes in?
Yes, these are all my own experiences, and I've only gotten all of these experiences from, like I said, from dreams, my own writing, and from my experiences with working with my friend Lori through regressions. So memories coming to me. These are all just my stuff. So these are from when I was taken into the programs, and then I was placed into clones. So every time you see a story in this book, like I'm in a different clone situation. So it's different stories of my life as a clone. So
Well, how does that work? Like, how do they? So what happens to your real body? Like, and does it go in stasis while the clone like goes and does like an operation or something like that?
that's what I was seeing, that's what I was seeing as a child. I was seeing myself as being there, where I was taken into the programs as a child and kept and used in different ways. And then my consciousness would be pulled out and be put into a clone. And then years after that, and then you come back when you're there for a number of years, like some people will call it a 20 and back, but I saw that as it could be less than 20, it could be more than 20. Some people think you can only stay gone for 20 years. But I saw myself pulled out at, like, I think around age 8, and I was taken into the programs. My consciousness was taken, put into clones. I was used for different things I talk about in the book. And then I came back, and when I came back here into my body, body here, I was still age 8, but I just started to have, I was different. My personality was really different. My mother was different for some reason. I don't know why she was different, but she closed down her business. She had this thriving business. We were really happy going up there to this like pool hall, this little hamburger joint that she had. She shut that down. Um, my personality, like I said, was very different. And I just went ahead and lived my life up until age 18. I joined the military, and then I was taken again. And I talk about visions of that in the book, where actually the day that I was signing into the military, you actually go and sign in. You have to like say this oath or something. I remember doing. I had visions of being taken down a hallway, taken by a general, and being taken down a hallway, taken back into the programs again. So they must have taken my body and put me in stasis. The vision I saw was, I saw his face actually changing, where he became like reptilian like. And then I felt this like fluid coming up over my body, which was, I was being put in stasis. I didn't know what was happening at the time. I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling fluid coming up over my body. And then I realized, like, oh, I'm being put into stasis so they can take my consciousness and use me for different things. Again, like my second time going with them.
Wow. And then so okay, so then you did like do you remember doing a normal military term? Like do you remember were you
Yeah.
living a normal military life while like other stuff was going on, do you feel like?
Yeah, so I was taken, like that day that I signed in, I was taken in the 20 and back, I think for probably about 20 years. But then when they bring you back to that same moment that you left in. So I do have memories here of doing my regular military term here, and doing my regular military term here. It was just very traumatic. It was difficult. And just like when I came back, like when I left when I was 8 years old and I came back, my personality was different. My mom was different. Um, I was depressed. I spent my whole life being depressed, being confused, always feeling like I'm older than I am, because I had already like lived a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Like do you think also the depression came from like things that happened while you were in the programs
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
were
I
having
think for
bleed
sure.
throughs?
Yeah, I think for sure, but we don't know why. Like I say, from myself, I didn't know, like, why am I depressed? And I think I've heard somebody else talk about that too, like not really knowing why, until I started having the memories. I'm like, oh, well, this makes sense as to why I was depressed. I had all this stuff happening, you know?
Yeah, and then some of that is so, it's like hardcore stuff, right? I mean, like some really traumatic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I talk in the book about, and there's more stuff I haven't even put in this book. I figured I would do a second book. There's the things like being taken as a child and being away from my family. I'm like confused, like, where's my family? And I always had this memory, even though they mind wiped me, I always had this memory like something's missing. I've got to get back to my family. I had this child mind. And then after they used me to be a spy for them as a child, I was put into a clone body to be in a brothel, but I still had this child mind, you know? So then there I am being a sex slave. And then I also worked as like a honeypot, and I worked as a honeypot doing like I talk about in this in the book where I'm actually hypnotizing someone, but I'm like a honeypot there with him as well, working with this political figure, trying to get him to do a certain thing that I want him to do, that the group I'm working for wants him to do. And I also was like a soldier being a cyborg. So that goes along with my soldier stuff in this lifetime being in the military. Um, so there were just various jobs that I was doing at the time that they wanted me to do. And I talk about that early on, you know, when they first took me as a child, they thought, hey, she looks like she would make a good psychic at this time because I passed a couple of their little tests, you know. So, but I saw different things kids could do. Kids could go and be used for adrenochrome. They could go and be used for, you know, different things like that. But I passed their little tests so I could be a psychic.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what would you say you were working for in space? Was it like Kruger or Nachtwaffen or Solar Warden? Do you know?
I don't know. The only thing I saw myself in space working for, well, not in space. In space, I saw myself as a soldier, but I saw myself in like an alien body, a partial alien body. I think it was partial reptilian. I think there was a mixture of the DNA, like in a clone body. So I don't know, you know, what group I was working for. I felt like I was like doing something with aliens. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. One thing that we didn't talk about was the deep underground military base. Like, do you have experience going to the DUMS?
yeah, when I was first taken as a child, I saw myself in an underground base. And I remember seeing some surgeries going on there, surgeries where there were some like long-nosed reptilians. I had never seen those before. I saw them later in some pictures, but I thought, what the heck are those? They just looked very odd. They were doing surgeries where they were actually taking humans and mixing their body parts. I call it like a Frankenstein in my book. So they're taking their bodies and trying to mix them together with like an alien or an animal or something. And um, I think they were taking the children who didn't really qualify more of the high level stuff. Like I qualified more of, they considered it a higher level to qualify as like a psychic. And they would take the children who didn't pass certain tests and say, okay, we'll give some of these children to these guys over here who are experimenting. And then I also saw children, it's almost like you're going off in separate lines. You're like going off in separate areas to be tested to be see what you're good for. Like, okay, are you good for adrenochrome? Are you good to go and do these surgeries? Are you good to go do psychic work? You know, are you good to go be like a child sex slave? You know, just like different things.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then, what about the moon in Alcara? So you spent also time there?
Oh, with the lady that I talked about, Clara.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
I'm not sure what Alcara is. I'm not. I never heard of that.
oh, the planet. So there was someone, I'm trying to think of the whole story that you're talking about. So I was taken to, I think I was doing some sort of psychic work with them. I'm trying to remember the whole story. There's so many stories in the book. Um, I met someone there who was training me for the psychic work and for the just connecting with my powers. And I think we were also doing some like mind control, because I remember some reptilians walking up to me and this person who was training me. And I think you're talking about her planet that she mentions. And the reptilians, we got them to just leave us alone because they were watching us. They were watching what we were doing. So we had some mind control we had some psychic work. This alien, she was an alien, she was training me. And I remember they took me captive to start to go to that place. And they injured my hand. I was like, why am I seeing this injury in my hand? But that comes up later because they threatened me. They say, hey, all you've got to do is injure your hand here and you just become food for us. So you see that injury, either we fix your hand and you do what we tell you to do, or, since you're injured, we just use you as food, because if we don't see you as valuable, we'll just take you off and say, hey, she's injured. She's our food today. So they purposely rolled me by this area where humans were just off in the corner being like just cut up and used for food, and they're just begging to stop, But yeah, that was a place I was being used as a psychic again, later on.
And yeah, and you're not just being used as psychic, but you're being used as a spy too, or so like for like espionage
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah. I mean, whenever they're wanting me to be a psychic for them, I'm spying for them. So I'm doing what, people here would call like remote viewing, that kind of thing. Astral travel, remote viewing.
Or maybe even like bilocation or something like that, where you're like going to somewhere else, like to view a specific like thing to like. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, I guess I would consider it the same thing. When I'm a child, like early on in the book, I talk about it in detail of the first time I was pulled into the situation where I was able to spy. Like I talk about how they bring me in, they hook me up to a machine. They had implanted something in my head that interacted with the machine. And I talked about how when I'm first pulled out of my body, I'm just like in this space of nothing. I was just floating there in nothing for a while. And I actually thought to myself, and there I am, I have a child mind. So as I'm writing it from the viewpoint of a child. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe I'll just stay here because it feels nice just to float in nothing here in this void. But then I remember, I think I have a family, and you got to remember, like I was mind wiped, and I'm thinking, I think I have a family, and I think I need to do what they want me to do and go back into this body that they have me in, which is, I think, my original body at the time, so that I can get back to my family. So I'm going to go do what they want me to do. So I'm floating around in the void, and they had given me some coordinates. And so I just take myself to those coordinates. So I think that my own psychic mind plus whatever implant, the machine they have me hooked up to, I'm able to go there. And I don't know if it's in that story or another story where I talk about the things that I'm seeing and I'm hearing, they're able to see on a screen, kind of like a television screen. They're able to see and hear what's going on in my mind. So I think that might be the only thing the implant was for, and the machine they have me hooked up to. So as I get to the place where I'm spying, and that's like early on spying days, I'm seeing, like these meetings going on. And it becomes like a page in time, as if you're turning a page in the book, where I could go like, okay, I'm going to go to Vietnam. Okay, I'm going to go to World War II. All right, I'm going to go to a future war. So I'm able to just pick, what area I'm going to. But that has to do also with the coordinates that they've given me. But there's something about the coordinates versus, me looking and connecting on to the right time period, the right war, or the right meeting that they're wanting me to go to. And then I'm there, I'm just like a bug on the wall, like they can't see me, but I'm able to move myself around the room and see what's written on paper. Like I'm talking about how I can look into files, even if the files are closed, I can see the words kind of come off the files, come out of the files and talk to me. I talked about when I was really young and I couldn't even read very well. It's as if the words are coming up and they're talking to me. So, yeah, it was really interesting, the whole spying thing. I'm just there and no one's seeing me.
I just wanted to quote something. This was really good. I found a really good quote from your book. Or this is, I mean, this shows you like how good you're able to remember your memories. This is about. I was going to see if I could quote your book. This is from the moon. It's only a paragraph. I thought this was a really good paragraph. Like it says, this is about the moon. It's and the reptilians. It says the moon felt dark and artificial, with the core feeling like metal. A sense of doom engulfed me as I looked around to see reptilians put on what looked like gas masks. They sprayed something through the ship that caused us to doze off again, while humans tried to hold their breath but pulled at their seatbelts. The reptilians seemed amused. There were so many humans, and that the reptilians didn't want any delays with us rebelling against unloading off the ship, so we were drugged again. They took us into a lab. I felt a lump body being placed into a table. No mattress, no pillow, or anything to comfort, just a cold metal table that became colder when they cut off my clothes. They placed an IV line into my vein and hand. They pressed on my skin at different areas of my body and dug into my skin with something that acted like a combination of a knife and spoon. That could be what do they call it? Scoop marks, you
Yeah,
know?
scoop marks.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's really that's amazing how you were able to like recall that stuff, you know? That's
You
really like
know, that's one of the stories that I wrote as I was writing the book. I didn't get it from a session, and I was trying to write it. I type really fast. Like I can type faster than I can write, and I'm like trying to type it really quick before the memory goes out because it's just like a movie. Like I'm seeing it. I was seeing them like they captured us. They captured us humans, and they're putting us in these big containers that I would imagine if you're in a big laundromat washing hotel sheets or something. Like it's like a really huge, or if you're in a hotel, I think I've seen them in a movie where these really big containers, you throw in all these sheets. Like they're throwing all these bodies, which is us, we're live bodies. They drugged us, they threw all our bodies in these large containers, and I was hanging kind of upside down with my hand. Oh no, wait. One of the reptilians is carrying me, but it's like he's carrying me by my torso with my hand and my head hanging towards the ground. And then one of them steps on my hand and injures it. So I'm writing this and I'm thinking, who cares if my hand is injured? Like it doesn't matter. But I'm just writing, I'm just typing it. And then later on, I get to the point where they threaten me and they say, hey, your hand's injured. All we have to do is say, hey, she's injured, and we make you food, because they're like, somebody's injured just a little bit. They're not worth doctoring them up, and we'll just make them food. So you better work with us. Or, or we're just say, hey, you're injured, you're food, you're out of here. So I'm like, this is
yeah,
weird
that's
how
that's
these little things come together. It's very strange.
So maybe could you discuss a little bit more on how they actually, if you have the information, how they would transfer consciousness between different clone bodies?
Um, I don't I don't think I got that information on how to transfer the consciousness from one body to another. It seemed like he was just I don't know. I don't know. The visions I got of him, he woke up in a hospital type of situation, and he was told by someone that he thought she was a nurse when she came in to help him. She told him that it was a different wing of the hospital that most people didn't know about, that the other parts of the hospital just seemed like a plain, ordinary hospital. So, and then his original clone body, original as far as we know, was just stored in a place, and it was like what you would see on television where they pull out a long drawer. And I kept looking at that, and I thought, this just looks like what I would see on TV, but that's all that I was getting with it. It was a long drawer where his body was pulled out. And the person that he thought was a nurse was showing him his past body, which was shocking. I'm feeling all this emotion from him, like looking at his body, which is me. It's part of my consciousness is there in this being. And she talked to him about how you can tell it's a clone, which was like a little fold inside of his ear. So it was all interesting, because when he was in the different body, I'm like, I'm walking through this like I'm watching this happen, and I'm listening to it, and I'm feeling some of what he's feeling. And she takes him downstairs instead of an elevator to take him to see his clone body that he's been taken out of. And he's like, I'm hearing all his thoughts, and he's thinking to himself, wow, it's really easy for me to fit my feet on these stairs because my body is smaller. He's like, oh, my feet normally is kind of like I'm struggling to walk downstairs because he's so big, like he's a big alien being. And then he talks about how the smaller body he's in, he's like, oh, it's like really lightweight, kind of like a ballerina or something. I'm just kind of floating as I'm walking, instead of, I was just seeing him as being this big alien just thumping down the hall, in this huge body. And then suddenly he's in this little lightweight body. So I was getting all these little details like that, just coming to me so quickly that I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't make them up. I'm just trying to type it out really fast as it was coming.
Thank you. All right. Can you discuss, maybe tell us a little bit more on how advanced the cloning technology is out there, if you have that information? Like, how big are the factories? Where are they? How long does it take to, yeah, how can they modify your genetics?
Well, for that story, the only thing I saw, like I said, was the hospital where he just woke up in the hospital. There was another place I saw, a different story where a woman and her husband were taken up to a facility in another area. I think it was outside of Saturn, and her and her husband were doing some research, and she was working in a pretty big place where bodies were coming in, and she was transferring consciousness. And I don't know the technology of how they do this, but she was transferring consciousness from one place to another. She was either taking it from one body that had passed away and putting it into a clone. So these could be bodies that were not originally clones. And so if she takes it from a body and puts it into a clone, then they were able to get information that they wanted from that clone. So they may go out and like kill a bunch of beings, aliens, humans, whatever, take their consciousness, put them in a clone and get information, or they would take their consciousness, put it into some sort of machinery and get the information from there. So when she signed up for that, like, she was taken from what she thought was, a good college, and she felt like she was taken in because she had done well in school, and it was like she was happy that she was put into this program to work off world. And then she finds out, she signs the dotted line, and they offer her a bunch of money. And then she finds out she's going to be doing stuff she really didn't want to do. So it didn't sound ethical at all, but she was stuck in it because she agreed to do it, and she needed to do it. She was stuck. So there were kind of some carrots being dangled in front of her, like money and some other stuff. So
Okay, Angie, and you were describing going to college. Is that like this other aspect of yourself, another timeline somewhere that got
yeah,
recruited?
it was like another clone. So she felt like she was just a human here on Earth, but these were memories that they put into her that weren't even real. She was a clone, so they were false memories put into her. So they took a part of her consciousness, put it in this clone with these memories of what happened in the past. Really didn't even happen in the past. Took her and put her up, doing this research, and taking the consciousness, putting them into clones or putting them into machinery to get information. And
Okay.
essentially, it became like a slave situation as well. She thought she was working in a prestigious job, doing off world research and medical things. And she was just working from, hours and hours a day, not seeing her family much or anything, just like a slavery type situation.
Certainly, and cyborgs don't need to sleep very much, like two
Yeah.
hours a night or a day. Um, so ZV is asking, were you a scientist, or if you weren't, what different jobs or roles did your clones perform out there?
So in that one, I was a scientist. Yeah, there was another one where the woman who did a couple regressions with me, Lori, where I was a scientist in another situation as well. And then in the one where the being was a pilot, he had to be taken out of the body and was put into a slavery type situation. So there was another situation, like when I was first taken into like the 20 and back. I've seen 220 and backs that I've done. When I was taken in the first 20 and back, it was as a child. So essentially, you're just taken into like slavery. I was used for doing some psychic work for them in that situation, and there were just several different things I was used as a child. And then there was a situation where I was taken into being a cyborg, and I was used in World War II, but I was used on Hitler's side of World War II.
Foster Percival says the process of capturing consciousness is like capturing a ghost in the mirror. I know Jimmy Payne was discussing that, where they would transfer a demon inside the mirror to capture it. And that was actually in the movie Constantine, which I finally got to see, and it was, don't really recommend it. But now they have a part 2. I guess I have to watch. Your soul weighs 23 grams. They can extract this out using machines. Well, Mohawk, if you have any information, I know actually it was Ileana, the Star Traveler. She discussed this. She remembers seeing the eagle, the German eagle. I want to use the other word that get banned on here. Okay. Let's see here. Also, Ghost in the Machine. That was an excellent. Wasn't that was the TV show on Netflix where you would like transfer your consciousness through like a microchip? Wasn't that Ghost in the Machine? Maybe I'm getting that one wrong. If I'm getting it wrong,
I don't know. Is that like a series or something, or a movie? I don't
yeah,
know.
it was a series on. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? His family. He was related to a bunch of. He was like a police officer, and they were transferring content. Oh, sleeve. They were called sleeves. That's it. I remember that.